So I recently wanted to make a super easy and quick, simple apron, especially for the holiday season. I decided to film everything for you guys and make an absolute beginner-friendly tutorial. It's very easy and quick, and you don't need any pattern for it. So the only thing that you actually need to do is you need 3 measurements. You need your measurement for the chest, like how wide you want it to be here. I have it around like 25 centimeters. And then from this point, let's say from here, you go down and you want to tie it back on the waist, so you can decide how long you want it to have here. I think also like around 25 centimeters for me. And then from there you want to know how far you want it to go back, if you want the apron to stop here or if you want to cover it also the whole back side. So you can take measuring tape and go around. So I wanted to have here approximately until here. I don't want it to cover the entire back side. So for me that's 60 centimeters. You only need a little bit of fabric. Of course you can make the apron as wide and long as you want, but I wanted to keep it short and simple and not covering too much, just to throw it on. And then you will also need some bias tape, and we will put it around the edges of the fabric. I've put my fabric on half because I wanted it to be even on both sides when I cut, because I don't have a specific pattern that I just put on top of the fabric. And then the measurements that I took, I'm just going to take half of it. So I had 25 centimeters on the top, so I'm going to take 12.5 centimeters and I'm going to put it there on the fold and mark it. The next measurement is the length to the waist, and this measurement we will not take in half because the length doesn't change even though it's on a fold. So for me it was again 25 centimeters, and I'm gonna also make a mark there. The last measurement is how wide we want the apron to be. So for me it was 60 centimeters, and I'm gonna take again half, so 30 centimeters. I'm gonna mark it. And now depending on how long and how much you want the apron to cover, as long you will make it. I just made it the length of the fabric, it was just not longer, but of course you can make it longer if you want it to cover more. And again, I'm just gonna mark the side. Now you will need to connect the points. It's a little bit difficult to see on this fabric, but you see the blue lines. The upper line was my first try, but then I readjusted the line. I just go from the line more down, and then at the bottom I go to the side. And I pin everything in place because the fabric is on fold, so I don't want it to move while I'm cutting. I'm just gonna cut out now, and if you're done with cutting, you can also try it on, like hold it to your body, maybe pin it to your clothes and just see if you want some readjustments, like if you want to make it shorter or thinner, or if you want to add maybe some fabric on the bottom, you could also do this here. We're just gonna put all the bias tape now around the bottom 3 edges, so the 2 sides and the bottom edge. I'm gonna start by the sides, and then on top of the side bias tape I'm gonna do the bottom. I fold the bias tape open, and also if you don't have bias tape you can make your own one, or I just bought my bias tape here. So I'm gonna fold it open and put the right sides together. And I'm gonna sew where this fold is. After I did this, then I'm gonna fold it over and sew both sides together. So you can see I folded it on both sides open and pinned it to the edges of the fabric, and I'm gonna sew now where this first fold is, so it's around 0.5 centimeter seam allowance. So when we sew it there, we can fold it over and fold it onto the other side, and then it's gonna look neat from both sides. And now we're gonna do top stitching on top of the bias tape with an edge stitch, so close to the inner edge of the bias tape. I'm gonna repeat this process with the bottom edge of the apron, I'm gonna fold the bicep open and pin it again to the edge with right sides together. And I'm just gonna sew on top of the bicep from the sides. And then again, the same process, I folded the bicep over and top stitching it from both sides so it stays in place. Now we need to put bias tape around the top part. So we're gonna put bias tape on the curves and on the top part, of course. But while sewing the bias tape on, we're gonna leave some bias tape for the left and right side because we use the bias tape as a string that we're gonna tie in our bag. You can leave as much bias tape to the sides as you want. I think I did mine around 60 centimeters long. And then we're also gonna leave some bias tape on the top to make a little loop to put our head around so it holds at our neck. But actually what I forgot, before we do all of this, we need to sew bias tape on the top edge. So we're gonna do this first like we did before with the other 3 sides on the bottom. And then after this we're gonna sew the whole construction around it that's gonna bring the apron together. When you're done with the top edge and before sewing this whole construction around it, I just pinned it to my t-shirt and I wanted to see if it fits, and then you should also measure how much bias tape you need around the neck. So I just measured it here and then I know how much I need for the loop to hold around my neck. We start by leaving the space for the tie and then folding it open and pinning it again to the edge with the right sides to the first curve, and then leaving the space that we just measured for the neck loop and then pinning it to the other curve. Now we're gonna sew again just the part where the curves are, and we're gonna sew with this first fold again, so around 0.5 centimeter seam allowance. And then later, once we sew this, we're gonna fold everything, so also the ties and the neck loop over together, and then we're gonna top stitch the entire bias tape. Here you can see where I start sewing the ties together on the one side and then sewing over the curve and then the loop and then the other curve and then finishing it off with the tie on the other side. And now the apron is actually done, but I decided to add pockets. You can add 2 pockets, 3 pockets, or 1 big pocket. I decided to go with 2 pockets left and right, so I'm just gonna cut out the pockets that I think. I didn't measure anything, I just cut a size that I would like. The only thing to remember when cutting out the pockets is that you should make them a little bit bigger because you're gonna fold the sides over, so rather make them bigger than smaller. You fold the 2 sides and the bottom edge 0.5 centimeters over approximately. I did not do anything else because my fabric is not fraying, but if you have a fabric that frays a lot, then I would suggest to overlock the edges or zigzag stitch or just double fold them so there's nothing fraying. And in the top edge I folded a centimeter over. I then also pressed all my folds over. I want them to be nice and neat and pressed, and then I'm gonna start with sewing the top edge. So I'm just gonna sew here with a edge stitch and sew it closed. I actually tried the apron on then and decided where I want the pockets to be placed, and then I pinned it in place so nothing moves while sewing. And then after I'm done with this, I'm gonna sew all the 3 other edges, so all the edges except the top edge with an edge stitch. So I did like a seam allowance of like maybe a little bit less than 0.5 centimeters and just sewing all around. When I'm at the bottom of an edge, I'm not finishing the seam, I'm just gonna pivot, so I leave the needle in the fabric and just lift the presser foot and move my fabric so I can continue sewing without stopping. And now this super simple but still cute apron is done, and as you can see, it ties nicely in the back and it looks cute in the front, it's covering enough, and I really like how I can just throw it on top. I really hope that you enjoyed the tutorial. Thank you for watching, and let me know in the comments what you think of the apron, the tutorial, and see you next time. Bye!